Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for the components of requests for proposals and requests for qualifications. My name is Christy Galley. I am the program manager for the Office of Community Development. Again, thank you all for joining us. So just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions, there is a chat box or a Q&A box. If you could put your questions in, preferably the Q&A box, but if the chat box is all you can get to, that's fine as well. But if you could enter your first and last name, your title and the local government that you are affiliated with in the chat box to get us started, that would be great. And so this is specifically for the water sector program, but any program, federal program that you have with our office or that you are applying to with our office, this is going to apply because it's the federal procurement regulations and those don't change for any federal agency. So I just want to go through what the difference between the RFP and the RFQ is. The request for proposal or the RFP is for professional services, and that includes administrative consulting firms when price is a factor in the selection process. So anytime you are looking for an administrative consultant to help you guys put your proposal together or administer the program after the award is made, it would be through the RFP process. Your request for qualifications is for engineering or architectural services or any type of design services. And Louisiana state law prohibits price or price-related considerations as a selection factor. So qualification statements cannot be used to procure any other service. Engineering and architectural firms may be procured for administrative services, but the RFP procedure must be utilized to procure administrative services. So we have a couple of engineering firms that do both. There needs to be two separate proposals, one for the administrative piece and one for the engineering piece. So the purpose of the RFP or RFQ explains why the local government is issuing the proposal. So this is just an example. Apparently we have a village of Jazztown in Louisiana, and they're accepting proposals for administrative consultants to prepare a water sector application. The purpose doesn't have to be 4 or 5 paragraphs. It could be 1 or 2 sentences, just explaining what the purpose, the reason you were submitting the RFP, RFQ. The objective. You need to explain what the purchase, acquisition, procurement is seeking to obtain. So the Village of Jazztown is accepting proposals from consultants for management and administrative services required by the village for the administration/implementation of a water sector program grant. So the background of the issuer. So you need to provide the firms some information on your local government and pertinent information about the project. So this is the part where you're telling the proposer who you are. So the village is an incorporated municipality in the southeastern part of the state. The population according to the 2010 census is 748. The total number of full-time and part-time employment for the village is 3. The village has 5 elected officials, including the mayor, chief of police, and 3 aldermen. The village is an eligible applicant under the water sector program. The village owns and operates a water system consisting of 748 residential customers. Definitions. So if there are any items that you need to identify that are particular to the procurement, there is a section for definitions. And you could define for water sector, you could define water sector program. You could define really anything that is pertinent to this particular RFQ. So next is the project description. The project description, you need to provide sufficient information for proposers to estimate work efforts and time needed to accomplish tasks. This you're going to need to have a little bit more detail, maybe a paragraph or two, just to make sure you get everything in there that you need to include. Here's a very quick and dirty project description. The type of project involved is to provide management and administrative services to keep the Village of Jazztown in compliance with all federal, state, and local standards for the design and construction of a water well system, including but not limited to maintaining program files, updating policies regarding equal opportunity, construction compliance, and financial management. The schedule of events. So you're going to need to outline any significant date or event of the procurement when the RFQ is issued and announced. So you publish the RFQ on December 3rd, 10th, and 17th. The final dates for inquiries or clarifications is December 30th. And the initial submittal deadline is January 3rd. And then if you need to have an extended deadline, because I know right now we are not getting a ton of responses to our, especially RFQs, because there's so much work in this state, you may need to extend the deadline, and you might want to include that in the RFP as well. And then the estimated date that you will select a contractor, and then the estimated date that if you know when the application is due, put the application due date. So the RFP and RFQ, there's really no set time for how long they must be posted. However, you have to ensure adequate competition, and the minimum for that would probably be 14 days to ensure that you have multiple responses. You also need to make available, if you have a website, please post it on your website. If you have a Facebook page, please post it on your Facebook page. A local journal is not necessarily going to be enough, because we have local journals that only run typically once a week. So if you are in, let's say, Mooringsport, Louisiana, you also need to advertise in the Shreveport paper, because you're going to get more traction in the Shreveport paper than you would in the Mooringsport journal that is once a week. So the scope of services. So the scope of services, you need to identify the tasks and or accomplishments that the contractor needs to perform. These include the objectives, any requirements, and elements and deliverables. So the scope of services is to include, but not limited to, assisting in setting up and maintaining the general water sector program files in accordance with the requirements. So I have the LCDBG program handbook in here. I'm not, that there isn't a water sector handbook because this is a brand new program. So, but you probably can follow the handbook from the CDBG and use that as a guide. So this would also assist the village in reviewing and updating appropriate policies regarding equal opportunity. And then the environmental clearance in accordance with the regulations in the CDBG handbook. Comply with labor compliance in accordance with the LCDBG handbook. Construction compliance with the handbook. Program monitoring and closeout, financial management, and assist in the procurement activities. If if the administrative consultant is hired prior to the engineer, there's no reason that the consultant can't help them put that together as well, because they might have more experience. If they're already hired and on staff, it shouldn't be a problem. Contract and payments. So you need to identify the contract, the type of contract, and the prices that will be utilized in the contract. So you need to put in there what the intent of the village is. So the intent of the village is to award a cost reimbursement contract. The contract ceiling amount of the program implementation reimbursable costs can be paid for implementation with the water sector funds determined by the state and may require adjustments in the proposed contract amount. So you just need to put in there a little bit about what the contract type is. They should all be cost reimbursement. And if they are an RFP, they are going to need to fill out a cost reasonableness form. And if it's for an RFQ, it will have to be, it's a different type of document that they need to fill out. So these are the two different forms that would need to be filled out: the engineering cost reasonableness and the administrative cost reasonableness. That needs to be filled out by, depending upon who's going to be, the administrative would be for the RFP and the cost engineering would be for the RFQ. The proposer's information. So you need to identify the relevant information about each proposer, their general firm background, general qualifications, general experience, references, certain assurances, and/or stipulations. And I believe actually Denise McGee is supposed to have done this particular slide. So Denise.
Hello, everyone. The selection process, the proposal needs to identify who will be conducting the evaluation, a one-step or two-step process, and interviews. Evaluation criteria, threshold requirements are optional, but most helpful. Most proposals will have the same criteria, which makes them harder to rate. These are the minimum requirements for all proposals to compete, qualifications, education, experience, and capabilities. Threshold requirements are not to be used as a scoring criteria because if not all proposals have these. The minimum, criteria for thresholds would be the minimum 5 years experience with the water sewer programs and a particular degree, which could be in accounting, engineering. I'm sorry, I had something pop up on my screen. Landscape architect, and etc. Weighted evaluation criteria. The criteria for comparison of proposals and selection of contractor, qualifications, experience, capabilities. These last four are optional: past performance, approach, and staffing or their work plan. Qualifications. The proposal will submit documentation stating his or her team's general academic qualifications and experience. The proposer shall also submit documentation regarding the proposer's team's academic qualifications in the area of financial management or accounting. Finally, the proposer shall submit documentation stating the firm's total cumulative number of projects administered by the firm's current employees. Experience. Proposer will submit documentation to exhibit the proposer's project experience. The proposer shall also submit documentation showing his or her work on similar types of water and sewer projects and the firm's total cumulative experience with the water sector program administration. The proposer shall also submit documentation that states that he or she has been conducting business in the state of Louisiana for a minimum of 5 years. Capabilities. Proposals Proposer will submit documentation stating that the number of different personnel performing specific project functions. Proposer will identify how which personnel will perform the following functions: project manager, environmental specialist, labor specialist, financial controller or accountant, contract specialist, civil rights section 3 specialist, and clerical. Number of non-routine specialty areas the firm has performed in the last 3 years, and the average number of years that the firm maintains its employees. Price and cost. The proposal needs to identify how much weight price and cost and is required for all procurement except for design professionals, which are engineers and architects. Cost reasonableness. In order to meet the cost reasonableness requirement of the federal grant procurement regulations 2 CFR 200 subpart E, when not using price, only competitive bidding, all proposals will be required to prepare a cost reasonableness schedule for all required tasks based upon the estimate of the time required and rate of compensation to establish a cost per task. Some tasks may be contracted and billed on a price basis as long as they conform to the requirements of contract prices. This is located in page 5 of the LCDBG procurement procedures. For the purpose of scoring costs, the proposers must submit a completed cost determination form to provide a common cost comparison for all proposals. Submission requirements. You can request additional information or pertinent information not elsewhere requested, and you can state the requirements for the submission on your RFP and RFQ. So with the submission, you need a cover letter, and they must submit a cover letter signed by an authorized representative of the entity committed proposal to provide the services as described in this RFP in accordance with the terms and conditions of any contract awarded pursuit of the RFP process. The cover letter must include firm and location, indicate the full legal company name of the proposal, the address of its headquarters, and the address of the office to which this project will be assigned. So some engineering firms or admin consulting firms may have satellite offices. So whichever office that will be handling your grant needs to be on the cover letter. The contact person, clearly identify the name, address, and telephone number of the proposal's contact person for any and all communications pertaining to this RFP. Authorized submittal, include name, signature, title, address, and telephone number of the person authorized to submit and sign the proposal. Evaluation criteria. What is the proposal qualified to do? Academic achievement and a pertinent experience of firm's personnel to be employed by this project will be for qualifications. For experience, what has the proposal done? Firm's list of previous comparable projects by type, size, and number. Capabilities. What can the proposer do? What personnel and or other resources and their qualifications or specialties are available for this project? Past performance. How well has the proposer done comparable work? Quantifiable measures proposals have performed previously on specific identified projects. Approach. The objective, project description, and scope of services all align. Firm is asked for their recommendations on how to accomplish this objective implied in the project description. Here are our contact information. Christy Galley, she's a program manager. Myself, Denise McGee, and William Hall. You guys can email us or call us. We're always here to help with anything. And if anyone has any questions, we are ready to take questions.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Are there any questions? I see there's one. What is the difference between experience and capabilities? So experience would be the different types of similar jobs that the proposer has done before. So if they've had, let's just say, for sake of argument, they've had 15 CDBG programs. And the capabilities, that would be like, what can they do? Does that answer your question, Robin? Is the material available to be printed? Are you referring to the slide presentation? We also have a sheet that we can send out that has the components and an explanation of them on there. If you would like that, you can go ahead and email Denise, William, or myself, and we will send it out to you. Can OCD prepare and post a sample RFQ for engineering services that meets your requirements? So they're not our requirements, they're the federal requirements. We can assist you with the RFP, RFQs. For our other programs, we have to approve them prior to you posting them. But for water sector, that is not the case. But if you want, we can, once we send out the component information, if you still need assistance after that, we are happy to help you. Yeah, we're happy to send out the component information. If you can, like I said, just email us. Our information is on our office website under staff, and we'll be happy to send that information out to you. So another question is, what if the projects are already designed and ready to send to DHH for approval and then bid? So if this is for, so Bill, let me ask you a question. You were asking about the, is this a current water sector program that you have? Or is it something that you are in the process of submitting the plans and specs for? And administrative services with federal dollars. If you have any type of local funding that is not originally from the federal government, you don't have to follow the federal procurement guidelines. It's only if it's federal dollars that are going to be used for the procurement of services. So if they are already designed and ready to be sent for DHH for approval and then to bid, if the federal government is going to be paying for them, then, okay, I see, Bill. We submitted in round 1 and did not receive funding. We intend to resubmit in round 2. Most of the projects we submitted are designed and ready to be sent. So I guess that just depends, Bill, on if you are paying with federal dollars. If you're paying with federal dollars, you will have to put it out to bid, and the engineer who put it together would not be able to bid on it. So that's also a very important thing we need to discuss. So if a design professional has prior knowledge to the project, so in this instance, the engineer has designed the project, for them to be able to be considered for the project, they would have to be paid with local funds. They would not be able to bid on the project if federal funds are being used, because they have prior knowledge, because they designed it themselves. So they would not be able to bid on the project and therefore get it. So if there's a way to get local funds to pay for those engineering costs for the grant. If you're able to get round 2 funding, then that's what I suggest at this point. And I know that they were going to talk to the legislature about having some money to the side for instances like this. I don't know if that went through or not. Does that answer your question, Bill? I just want to make sure I'm answering the questions as best I can. So Jean asked, do all architectural engineering design for services that involve federal funding require an RFQ to procure? Yes, they all require an RFQ to procure because it's, if you're using federal dollars, everything is the same. What if the owner does not want funding for engineering, but only construction? So if the owner does not want funding for engineering, so if they are not requesting federal dollars to pay for the engineering, then you would not, the current person that you have, Bill, would be able to move forward. If they're being paid with local or private funds, it's a non-issue.
Also, you guys, I just want to reiterate that making sure we are having open and fair competition, meaning when your RFP and RFQ are posted, making sure you're posting them in not just your local journal or paper, making sure you're posting them in larger municipalities' papers that maybe run more than once a week, maybe a couple times a week. Also, having more than one response. If you only get one response to your RFQ or RFP, it may be disallowed if you do not have adequate documentation supporting that you advertised for at least 2 weeks and you solicited multiple firms about your RFP or your RFQ, so that you don't have to worry about any backtrack with the federal government if you didn't do all the steps that you were supposed to.
Thank you, Denise. Yeah, the biggest part about the federal procurement guidelines is fair and open competition. You can't play favorites. So it has to be an even playing field for everybody. I think let's see. Okay, so can the local funds as part of the 25% match pay for the engineering services and not have to procure? Yes, they can do that. So when you say an entity using local funds do not have to advertise for engineering, does local funds include the required match? Yes, they do. Does the RFQ requirement apply if only USDA funds are used to pay? No grant funds. So the USDA loan funds, Heather, can you, I'm not sure that the loan fund that's a different kind of ball game altogether. Heather, do you know anything about that particular piece?
I know it's also federal funding.
Yes, it is federal funding. And I believe that the loans have to be repaid back. But if it's
They have some that are forgivable. I don't know enough about the programs, but you can you'll have to see what their requirements are for their program.
Yeah, but it is but those are also federal dollars, so they have the same federal procurement regulations as well. Okay, so Richard is asking if a design engineer has been working in a community for decades assisting with their water system, are they considered to have prior knowledge and they are not eligible to respond to an RFQ for engineering services to their water project for the water sector project? That is correct. They have prior knowledge of the community's water system or sewer system that other people do not have, therefore giving them an unfair advantage. So they would not be able to apply to bid for the project unless they're using local or private funds.
Now, if they have prior knowledge of the project, that's a prohibition, not prior knowledge of the system. You just have to make sure the RFQ isn't aimed towards utilizing that prior knowledge. That makes sense.
Thank you, William. It's a very, very slippery slope.
Yes, all the inspectoral general reports that talk about disallowing cost, you need to make that distinction between project and prior experience. Otherwise, they're going to make the wrong assumptions and disallow.
Yeah, the biggest thing is that we, are trying to help everyone when it comes to not having disallowed costs, because then the community would have to pay for those costs. And I know there are a lot of communities that don't have the budget to repay the engineering costs. Otherwise, they could pay them at the get-go. So just be very, very clear. And if you have, I guess Richard is asking or telling me that it didn't make sense. So if you have that particular situation, please reach out to us and we can assist you in that particular instance in writing the RFP, RFQ to ensure that the competition is still fair and open. Are there any other questions? And so I just want to let everybody know that for the next 3 weeks, from 1 until 2, we are going to have an open call Zoom. So if you are starting to work on this and you have a question, you can, if you don't get a chance to email us prior, you can hop on the Zoom and ask us a question live and we can assist you. So it's June, let's see, today's June 8th. So it's the 15th, 22nd, and 29th from 1 to 2. It'll be a similar situation to this but there's not going to be a presentation. It's just going to be open for questions and answers. So if you don't get on until 1:30, we will still be on the line waiting for y'all to come and talk to us. And then we're also doing, for our CDVG program, we are doing live, this particular thing live on January, I don't know why I almost said December, on June 16th in the Claiborne building. Registration is required. So if you want to attend, you can attend. You can email me and I can send you the registration form. I know it's going out hopefully today or tomorrow. And then we're also having one on June 21st in Pineville at the Main Street Community Center. And again, registration is limited. So and these are only going to be open to local governments because the engineers and the consultants cannot put together the RFP and RFQ for their own services. Melanie, you can send questions to any of our emails. Mine specifically is KRISTIE.GALY2@la.gov. What incentive would an engineer have to assist with an application if he could not apply for the design services? Out of the goodness of their heart, I guess. There is no incentive. So you just have to make sure that they can get paid and that the funds are available to have them paid. So if you have any questions, to just please let us know. I'm going to share my screen again. So our contact information is on there. So just give me 1 second. Okay, so if the 5 million set aside by the legislature is used to pay for engineering, is the RFP process required? If you want to use federal funds, yes, it is required. If you want to take a chance and be one of the ones that the legislature chooses, I'm not sure, I'm not privy to that particular part of it, but they won't be able to fund everybody who's requesting funding for engineering and administrative services.
The answer is yes. You are required to still follow the federal procurement procedures and make an effort.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Again, please reach out to us if you have any questions. We are here to assist and help you. We want to make sure that everything is done properly, so there are no questions when it comes to the eligibility of the RFPs and RFQs and the costs. We don't want anybody to have to pay back any money to the federal government. That's what we're trying to avoid. We're not doing this to be mean or unfair or anything like that. This is, every federal dollar has to be, procurement has to be, follow these directions or these guidelines. Heather, do you have any other questions in the chat?
Someone just asked how long to find out if a waiver of match is approved. If you're talking for round 2, they announce it at the time of award. So that's the only other question I have, though.
Okay. Well, I guess I don't see any more in the Q&A boxes. So like I said, next week we're having, for the next 3 weeks, we're having the Q&A session on Zoom. I believe, Heather, are those posted on our website?
Yes, it is. And it's the same login information as today, but they are
Okay.
posted on the website under the news page and on the water sector page.
Okay. So if you have any questions after you start working on this, you can wait until then, or you can email us or call us. We are here pretty much every day, and we are happy to help y'all do this on the front end instead of on the back end. It's a lot easier to do it this way on the beginning. So I've gotten quite a few emails requesting the components thing, so that's exciting. I'm happy to hear. Again, thank y'all for joining us. I appreciate y'all being here, and hope to see some of you or all of you next week.